what do you want? Do you want the Army or Navy? I says, I'll take the Army. He goes, pow! I looked. He says, I'll see you back here in 7 days. You've just been drafted into the Navy.
Welcome to another episode of Feel Good Fridays. Today we're honored to be sitting with someone truly inspiring, Jim Weir, who is 100 years old and has a beautiful story to tell us. So thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for having us. My name is James Weir. I was born in Mount Pleasant, Pennsylvania in 1925 in a little two-bedroom house, no water, no electric, no air conditioning, no heat, just an old coal stove in the kitchen. I told everybody transportation back when I was born was a horse and buggy and a Model T Ford.
Wow. What would you say to them is the most important thing that you've learned in your wonderful life?
Well, mostly, I guess, making it through the war and meeting a lot of nice people and how to treat people. When you become 18, you had to sign up for the military, and they give you a number. So when that number comes up, they call you in and you go through the line for examination. I went through the line and the officer was at the end of the line and he had a stamp in his hand, you know, one of those things, you know. He looked up at me and he says, Sonny, what do you want? Do you want the Army or Navy? I says, I'll take the Army. He goes, pow! I looked. He says, I'll see you back here in 7 days. You've just been drafted into the Navy. So in 7 days, we reported back. They sent us up to Great Lakes for boot camp. And then from boot camp, they sent us down to Little Creek, Virginia. And they had the big transport anchored out in Chesapeake Bay. So they put us on small boats with flat bottoms and a ramp so that we could go up on the beach. So we would circle and we would go alongside of the transport. The Army would come down these rope ladders, get in our boats, and we would take them in to Virginia Beach. And I was on the wheel. The whole way through my career with the Navy Amphibious Force, I was on the steering. And that we was to take them down to Dartmouth, England. And on the way down to Dartmouth, England, we sprung a leak in the engine compartment, and the whole stern, our living quarters, everything went underwater. So we was all up on the bow, you know, and we had no radio. So a small boat came by and says, we can't tow you, but we have a radio. We'll get you a tow, right? And it was right off of the White Cliffs of Dover, one of the most beautiful places in this world. Now, these tanks was to go in, we was to take these tanks in, and they was to blow up these gun emplacements so we could go back out in the channel to the transports and take the troops and their equipment. June the 6th, 1944.
What's your nutrition? You gotta tell us.
I dare you to tell her where you eat breakfast.
Yeah, go ahead, tell her, I don't care.
What do you have for breakfast?
He goes to Wendy's every morning.
You know, at 100 years young, you still make time to go to the gym and to stay active and to stay fit. So what does health mean to you, and where do you find the motivation to keep going and prioritizing your health?
Well, I joined my first gym in 1969 in Hollywood, Florida. And that's when they had to have two gyms side by side, one for women, one for men. And then it got so that there was hardly any gyms because they couldn't afford to have two gyms. It was expensive enough for one. So that's when later on then, not too much later, they joined the women and the men with one gym.
How about nutrition? How important is nutrition? I know that earlier you shared with us that your daughter also went through a bone marrow process.
Right.
So how did that impact, you, the way you take care of yourself, your nutrition? You can share a little bit about that.
I never was a big eater. Never was a big eater. So, but what I ate, I could eat most anything. You know, I wasn't particular. The only thing I did, I always watch, even today, when I go to the grocery store, I watch the cholesterol and the sugar in the food. And I'll try not to go over 9 or 10 with either one of them. And when I go over, it's just for a little bit and not every day. Then when these young guys ask me how I live so long, I says, wild women and cheap whiskey.
Every day you come to the gym?
Well, I come 6, she goes 7. My great-grandchildren, whenever they go, a lot of times, Lisa and George have a home in the Keys. And a lot of times they all go to the Keys. Well, when there's nobody home but me, I go to the gym the 7th day. And the kids don't go to the Keys, then I take them to breakfast on Sundays. At any restaurant, they pick the restaurant where we go.
What's your typical workout routine when you come to the gym? Do you like
Well, I do the bicycles, the one where you sit down and go this way and not this way, right? And I do the rowing, the wall, the biggest thing, and then you sit on it with your feet, push it back and forth. I do 60 reps on each one of the machines, and then go home. Getting back to the service, a couple of months that we spent in Normandy, they took us back to the States, and we thought we was going to get a 30-day leave, and they gave us a 20-day leave. Well, Laverne and I were engaged. We got engaged when I went into the Navy, and when we got the 20-day leave, when I come home, I says, you know, why don't we just go ahead and get married? Then the government will be paying her while I'm in the service, you know? So we went and got married. It's 20-day leave, and we couldn't have a wedding. We had to go get married. So in Pennsylvania, you had to take a blood test, and it took 21 days. So somebody says, you go to Virginia, you can get a test. And then marriage the same day. So we went to Virginia, but on the way, we saw her daughter, her sister, and she was on her way home. We says, whenever you get home, you tell your mother that we went to Virginia to get married, right? So anyway, we go to Virginia, same as Pennsylvania. So then they says, well, if you go to Maryland, you can get married. So we went to Hagerstown, Maryland, and we got licensed. So then we looked for church, looked for preachers. We got the preacher and his wife, and we got married. Well, we went home. And that night, we walked in the door at her mother's, and her mother was in the kitchen ironing, right? And her mother turned around and she says, well, I guess you're pregnant. And I says, well, Laura, time will tell, you know? So anyway, her mother was raised three daughters herself, single mother, and never got married. And when we left Pennsylvania and was down in Hollywood, we had to. Her mother called us one night, and her mother by that time was about 60 years old or better, right? So she said to Laverne, I got news for you. And Laverne says, what's the news? She says, I just got married. I says, Laura, are you pregnant?
So
I got her back.
Circle.
All those years. Anyway, after Normandy, they went back to the States and got married. I had to go back to New York, and they took us a troop train to San Diego, California, and they split us up, and they put us on LSMs, landing ship medians. And what I remember, another part of what I can see it in my sleep, is I was steering, right? I was steering that ship and taking it underneath the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow.
Here's a hillbilly from Pennsylvania 18 years old driving this. Oh. Anyway, we was on our way to Hawaii. So we spent Christmas of 44 in Hawaii.
Wow.
And that's when I said, if I make it through this war, I'm going to live in a climate like this, right? And that's how I got to Florida. So anyway, from Hawaii we went to Philippines, and we were in the liberation of the Philippines. We spent several months there, and then we went up to Anahuac, and we took on troops, and we was going to invade Japan. So we had already left Anahuac, and Japan surrendered. So the troops that we had on, we took into Japan September 2nd of 1945. Now I've told everybody that it was September 2nd of 45 that we took the first occupational troops into Japan. And don't you know that on the 2nd of this month, on what was Tuesday,
Wasn't
right?
it
Yes.
the 8th?
Huh?
Yes.
The 8th or the 2nd?
No, the 2nd. The 2nd of September at 45. We took the
They
first troops in here. It was
surrendered.
on the news about the first troops going into Japan September 2nd when they surrendered, right?
You were there.
And it was us,
Wow.
and it was 80 years ago, September 2nd, that we took those troops into Japan. In Japan, we went back to Anahuac, and the captain told me, he says, "Hey, we're gonna hit the beach, and I want to hit it hard." Because they didn't want to get off the beach. They didn't want them to go anywhere else, right? So we did. We hit the beach hard. And he called me in the office, and he says, you have enough points to be discharged. He says, because of your time overseas and your combat, you have enough points to be discharged. He says, now we're not going back to the States. But he says, we got an aircraft carrier that's going back to New York in 2 days. He says, if you want to take your discharge, we'll put you on that aircraft carrier for transportation back to New York. I says, don't let him leave without me.
How old were you then?
So they put me on the aircraft carrier back to New York in a big snowstorm. And of course I wanted to go back to Greensburg, Pennsylvania, right? Because my wife and family was waiting for me. And there was a blizzard everywhere. Instead of going from New York right to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I had to go to Ohio, and from Ohio to Pittsburgh, and then from Pittsburgh to Greensburg. But I made it home for Christmas, a couple days before Christmas, 45.
You served how many years?
Just a little better than 3. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you
But
saw.
it was because of the service that I had that I got up and on points. I didn't know they was keeping points, until he told me that I had enough points to be discharged. I said, oh my God, I thought I was in for, at least a couple more years.
Right. Wow, what a blessing.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were able to go back to the States in 45, start your family, your career,
Yeah.
and the rest is history.
Yeah, I was able to call them in Greensburg and tell them that I'll be going into Pittsburgh, so they came to Pittsburgh and picked me up.
Most grateful in your life? What's the one thing?
Well, that God brought me through all of that. When just like Normandy's first wave, we just didn't drive in there. When we drove in there, they were shooting at us. In other words, they hit us. They blew a hole in the ramp. The first time we put the ramp down for the tanks to go off, they blew a hole in the ramp that it was the tanks were able to straddle it.
God.
And then when we backed off, and brought the ramp up, then we knew that the hole was above the water line. So that didn't affect us.
Wow.
But we had, at night, we had bombers. We got shook out of bed a couple of nights when where the bombs hit close to our ship and rocked us.
You got back home.
Yeah.
You were married, and how many kids did you have?
Two,
Pop.
boy and a girl.
Two.
Uh-huh.
And then they're now both married, and they have children.
Yes, I ended up with 4 grandchildren, and now I got 6 greats. I got 3 in Georgia and 3 here.
You shared with me earlier about your daughter. So your daughter passed away around 49.
My daughter is Lisa's mother.
Lisa's mother.
Right. Yeah, she died in 97.
What was her diagnosis?
She had ovarian cancer,
Oh, wow.
but she was cured of it. But and the doctor, I took her to Georgia to find out about this thing with having to give her blood transfusions after the thing, and the doctor says they didn't take enough bone marrow when they took the bone marrow out. That's why she got the problem.
So in other words, they didn't do enough blood in order to circulate the blood and do
when they took it out and did it, they freeze it for a week and put her in intensive care. Nobody goes in to intensive care for that week because she's she could catch anything, right?
I went through it.
Oh, okay, you went through it, right.
For months. Sometimes it's months that you're isolated because it's like you're a newborn. The chemo kills all the cells, the good and the bad.
All the cells.
So it's like your body. Sometimes people pass away just from that process because your body can't sustain the amount of chemo and the different things that they give to kill the bone marrow.
They froze the cells and put them back in. They didn't have enough. And that's why they had to keep giving blood transfusions. And the one last time, it was infected.
Wow.
And killed her.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Blood transfusion today is different from then because they have a little bit more screening today. But there is a huge need for platelets. There's not enough donors of platelets. Even still today, there's a shortage. And one of the things that we do through Get Red is raise awareness for donors, the need for donors, for bone marrow and for blood. And for you, living for 100 years, that is just inspiring for us.
Impactful.
And it's
Me too.
It's an honor to have this time with you. And if you could just summarize and say in one sentence, the one thing you want to say to the world, what would that be?
There's so many.
I think you ought to say what you said when you had the last interview here. How did you get through 73 years of marriage? What are the 2 words?
Right. And I tell everybody that. Love and respect.
And that's what the world needs. Love and respect.
I would say that I don't think any of us would have gone through these journeys. Your journey through, being a veteran and marriage and having children and having great-grandchildren if it wasn't for your faith, right? The hand of God has been with you, right?
Exactly. And I thank him so many times.
We want to leave you both with this. You are an inspiration to us.
Oh, thank you.
And I think so many people are going to get the privilege of hearing your story and of just being able to share your wisdom with us.
Feel good Friday.
Yes.
I feel good every day.
What's your words of wisdom for us?
Too many words.
What's that? What'd you ask?
Words of wisdom.
I think as you age, things fall into place differently. When you're young and your responsibilities are different, but as you get older, especially I'm a retired teacher, you see young people and you have wishes for them, your safety, your security. We didn't grow up with murder. We didn't grow up with guns and fighting and hatred of each other because of your color, your religion. We grew up with the basic things that I hope everybody else gets. And we send our prayers and wishes for both of you for
Right.
good health.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Right.
much.
We have a lot of patients that we're helping with the bone marrow transplant journey. And so I'm sure that this interview will be very inspiring for them because you're giving them hope, you're giving them faith, and you're giving them the wisdom
Right.
that we need to keep on this journey, right? We all have a different journey. And
That's
it's
why
just-
I'm here.
Yes. Thank you for sharing your journey.
Your life is a reminder that discipline, gratitude, and service keeps us strong at any age. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your heart and your experience.
Oh, love you both. Yeah.
Thank you, Nina.
And this is Feel Good Friday.